Welcome back to the Pushing Through Loss podcast, where we share stories, honor resilience, and embrace strength. I am Kalila Green Siciliano, and it is my honor to begin the journey with you. Analee, thank you so much for coming on today's podcast. I really appreciate having you here. We just spoke for a few minutes before we started recording, and I just think that the stories that you have to share and your experiences that you have to share about loss are so vital to helping other people. So thank you. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. I really feel very excited. And even though it's not an easy topic, I feel excited to know that I could help and support the topic and the purpose behind all this, and to help ladies. That's my desire, and people in general to heal on the other side of losing several loved ones myself.
Well, thank you. And I know it's definitely a difficult conversation, and anybody who's willing to talk about it, it means so much. So thank you. Um, Take me back to the first loss that you told me about, because I think, like you said before we started recording, that really shaped who you are as a person and how you then moved forward in life to be able to really get through a lot of the other losses you've had.
Well, first of all, I would like to share a little quote that I have here of Hope Edelman. I don't know if you know her,
I don't.
Motherless Daughters, The Legacy of Loss. I actually was able to finally find healing after 33 years, believe it or not. It took me that long to finally talk about losing my mother, losing a child, losing my best friend. Um, and she actually mentions this, and it really touched really deeply. It says her task is to look at her mother as objectively and holistically as she can, choosing the memories and traits she wants to adopt and carry them with her as she moves forward. That's exactly how I feel, because I had to choose what I was going to become. I was not even 15. I was going to become 15. And to be exact, we were planning a quinceañera. If you know what a quinceañera is my sweet 15th birthday.
Mm.
And the Hispanic community, we celebrate 15 birthdays, not so much the 16th birthday. It never actually happened because she passes away in August, and my birthday is in September. So
Wow.
it was just 3 weeks, not even the month, for my party. So we were already having who was going to be part of the party, who I was going to be dancing with. We finally had where it was going to be held. We were already rushing through with a dress, trying to get myself measured, and all that, fun stuff. But she knew in the process of her pregnancy that something was wrong. And she would bring up these little concerns, and eventually, well, if something happens to me, Analee, this is what I want. And I would always let her know. I would always tell her, Mom, this is not going to happen. You need to know that God is in control. You're very young. She was just 35 years old.
Wow.
And it was just too much. When we finally, she goes to the hospital, she comes back, she goes back to the hospital. Eventually, they leave her there, and it was the hospital's fault. She decided to leave a private doctor that she was seeing because there was something very off with the doctor, and it seemed like the doctor was not being respectful. He became a little too touchy with her. She didn't like it, so she decided to share that with my grandmother. And I heard that conversation going, and she said, I'm not going there anymore. My dad had a great experience just with the general public hospital. I'm going to do that. We were out of the country because she was an interpreter and translator for General Motors in one of the companies in Mexico, in Ramos Arizpe, Coahuila. So she We were there, and she goes in. I still remember today what she was wearing. I still remember our last conversations. I'm going to be fine. Yes, I'm going to allow you to have a party this weekend. I'll let you go. I'm just going to have your baby brother. Everything's going to be fine. Well, I still could see her walking through those doors, but it was going to be the last time I would see her walking. I saw so much coming after that. She goes in, and later, some 3 hours later, while she's having all these complications, it turns out that she had placenta previa. Back in '88, a lot of people didn't know much of it, and there was not the technology. There was no way to really know if a woman had that, like now. A way to plan to have the blood, the transfusion immediately, to have a way to protect her, to make sure she made it through. A relative was able to provide the blood type. When you're out of the country, if you don't have the blood type, the banks don't tend to want to give you the blood type. It's not like in the United States. Back in that time, I just don't know how it is as of now, but I'm assuming it must be the same because I've heard still stories still now. So we transferred her to another hospital, which by the time we arrived, they sent her to one hospital. It was 30 minutes away. It's not that hospital. It was actually that other hospital. For her, that was days. It was too much. So she continued bleeding. They helped her, but it was too late.
Wow.
She her organs started shutting down. Instead of planning a quinceañera, I was planning a funeral, a little girl that was about to be 15. I had to mature. I didn't have a choice, which I was very mature for my age. That was always my personality. But it was too much for a little girl to have to sit and understand what was going on, processing that as the oldest. Um, my brother Jesse, that was just 9 years old, and her newborn baby that was some along where in the other hospital, I could not think where, but I knew he was in the hospital that we left him behind. We had to save her, which no, later that same night she had cardiac arrest, and that following morning the doctor comes out. He says, I am very sorry. It was about to be 11. He says, I don't think she's going to make it. I helped her through the second cardiac arrest, but this is a time for you all to step in and say your goodbyes. I remember that night that I started rushing and running in hallways and with people that I didn't even know, strangers asking for help. Help us, please, pray. My mother believed in the Lord. And I think that because of her beliefs, it allowed me to be able to make it, to be able to be here today. And I held on to that last hope of a miracle that never came. I cried out to the Lord. I asked him to please allow her to live. My parents had already been divorced, and my mom had already been remarried. She had already started her new life. Sadly, she did not make it. We stepped in. We had to say our goodbyes. It was very difficult. This beautiful lady with a beautiful heart, with beautiful brown, big eyes, had already, they told us she's here. She could hear everything, but she cannot respond because her body is starting to shut down. So we're just little kids. They're sitting there having to be strong. I wanted her to know how difficult it would be to say my goodbyes, but I was the oldest. I had to be strong for my brothers, for my baby brother Jesse. The other one was in the other hospital. it was very difficult. My grandfather stood up and he promised so much that he would do, which he never delivered for us. These promises, and still till now, I could still have those memories and flashes of seeing my mother still there in the bed, and how her body was shutting down. But then I also remind myself through therapy that I eventually did after 33 years later, my mom is not there anymore. She's in a better place. She's with the Lord. If I would have known, and if there would have been those resources, it would have been so helpful, um, so healing, um, and such a blessing that it would have made a big difference. I carried a lot of sadness through those 33 years. I lived out there pretending that everything was well, but I could not share. I was forced to continue moving and not sharing. My grandparents, where I ended up going to live, my mother's parents were not open to talk about these topics that needed to be addressed. They were very quiet. They were, oh, no, 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 we don't talk about that. We're all mourning in our own way, but we keep it privately. You mourn your way, I mourn my way. So I would go into my room and spend most of the time working after high school and stepping into my room and crying and reminding myself and having those memories with my mom, the things that we would do. She enjoyed spending time with animals. Till now, I have a lot of animals in my house. I have 7 animals, and I continue wanting to have more because of what her influence in my life was about loving animals, loving the neighbor, caring about the needs of other people. She loved her children. So I adopted a lot of her characteristics. She was an interpreter and translator. I eventually became an interpreter and translator, even though I've always been many years of my life in the educational field. So I carried a lot of things that she carried. The love for the kitchen. I ended up also loving the kitchen. So I adopted a lot of her traits, and I thank her for that. But then also that time of mourning that I could not share. I would go to school and I would pretend like I had a normal life. I had a mother that was at home. Close friends knew the truth, but I tried to keep that to myself because it was just too difficult, too painful to share that side. I just didn't want people to feel sorry, I didn't want people to feel pity for me. It was never my persona. So I try to hide that as much as I could. Then I went into an arranged marriage because of my grandparents, which I share in my book called A Legacy of Love. And I also wrote a workbook in both languages, in English and in Spanish,
Wow.
which I have here as well. Because if God gave me that to do, that mission of my story and how it would empower ladies and men and people and children, not to let yourself be defeated, but instead allow yourself to be healed by the Lord. And to know that you're not the only one, that there has to be other people out there that have gone through the same or maybe even difficult or worse situations than you actually have experienced, then it is well. But after going through all these things in my life, I said, I need to write a book. God is calling me to write this book. I lose a child after being in this arranged marriage. I was 5 months along in the same hospital where my mother started. That's where I'm like, oh, wow. Where
Wow.
my mother started her deathbed, uh, it was a lot for me. I was not going to be sent to that hospital, but because of other complications that happened that day, they sent me there. It was very difficult for me. It was a torture. It tormented me that day. The first thing that came to my mind was my mother in this bed. Am I actually in the same bed that she was at? Um, what was going through my mom's head? Did she know she was going to pass? She always talked about that previously. She had these premonitions. Oh gosh, am I also going to die? Yes, when I lose my child, I did come and I did talk to the Lord and I said, Lord, if this is actually something um, that you have for me to lose my child, well, then take me along with you. If I have already lost my mother, I had to go through this arranged marriage that I shared with my grandparents so openly that I didn't want. Then I'm losing my child that was my only hope. You see, it was my first child. I had a very hard time becoming pregnant because of my problems with my hormones, and my mom had the same problem. How am I going to see the light? Lord, help me here. Take me with you. I don't want to live anymore. There isn't really a reason. Well, in the midst of all that pain and all, eventually I become pregnant. I have my child, but I carried that sadness of that child because I never got to really mourn him. I never got to see him. The hospital, it was the hospital's fault. Once again, they did not give me my child, so they were covering that. I didn't get to bury my child. I didn't get to really see my child. So I became really good friends with the nurse that was there for me, to the point where I would go and chat with her. I would visit her. I would spend time at her place in her little house. I would take her Mexican bread that everyone loves. Mexican bread is sweet bread. Step in, take her some coffee, take her some hot chocolate, and we became good friends. And I just wanted her to tell me a little bit more about my child. And because that was like a healing, it brought healing for me. And when she would see that I would sit and cry, she knew that it was just too much for me. Just like when I lost my mother. And these topics, they do need to be exposed. They do need to come out. Even though it's been so long, I wrote a book. It's brought so much healing, so much restoration. But I'm a human being. I will always carry that. I will always remember. And it does not bother me at all when I go and I talk about these subjects, because there's nothing more, I think, as a human being and special, is to have feelings, to care, to be able to share that openly. And finally, I understood that it was not a problem. It was nothing, there wasn't anything wrong with me when I would want to talk about it and my grandparents wouldn't allow me. The same thing with my dad. My dad wouldn't allow me to share about my mom because he loved her so much that after their divorce, he became just quiet, and he was so upset with his own life and his own decision making that he kept on moving on with life. He remarried, but he was very unhappy. So still till now, but I was not allowed. So the only place I could eventually share this was with the Lord, in my own privacy, talking to him, crying out. So now that I'm able to share this with other people, it's a blessing, because I'm able to finally, through my book, with other people, interviews, to share what it is to lose a loved one. Then eventually, I lose my friend. We were very, very close, and through our kids. And we talked about our kids. We talked about someday being grandmothers and being great grandmothers, which it never happened. And eventually she passes away in 2011. we knew that she ended up having cancer, but her cancer had metastasized from uh it went through her from her kidneys, and it spread to her lungs, and from her lungs to her brain. So by the time she found out, it was too late.
Wow.
But she continued fighting for 2 years. And I don't have any sisters. So it's only brothers. So she was that sister
Hmm.
that I could always call, and she was always there for me. And I was always there for her. So when she started getting sicker, and in the mornings that she couldn't sleep and the pain, she would always call me. And I could count with her, she could count with me. Sadly, I lose her again, the same pain again, uh, the confusion again, the cycles of grief, of denial, of confusion, of, oh no, this is not really happening, she's going to call me tomorrow. Oh, there's something, it must have been, this is not really happening, it's not her, it's someone else, they're not telling me the truth. I went through all those cycles and keeping myself even busy, uh, because when losing someone, we all have different ways that we respond. For me, throughout the years, I became extremely, and I'm okay with that, it doesn't bother me. The only way I've been able to survive the losses is becoming a workaholic.
Hmm.
That I work from very early to very, very late. Am I hurting someone? No. Am I doing something wrong to myself? No. Maybe I could do a little less. Yes. But if I stop, it causes me to think and remind myself and go back and think of them. Do I think of them? Of course I do, all the time. I will always carry them. I will always talk about them. There will always be something that reminds me of my mother. There's just too much of her. I look a lot like her, and I understand that. I'm aware of that. But if I stay busier, it's better for me.
Hmm.
I don't want to stay stuck and continue to cry and cry. Instead, I want to know that this is just a temporary phase. And I know, because I'm a believer, that someday I will get to see my mother again. And that's what I carry and I share in my book,
Hmm.
that we're in a world that is broken. And we know that through Adam and Eve, all this happened because of that. They decided to go and try a fruit that they were told not to. And this is a result of it. And we're paying for that price. But we also know that God sent his son to pay for all our sins, and that someday along, we will be able to see our loved ones again, and there will not be more pain or sorrow. And that keeps me going every day. And then knowing the fact what my mother taught me too about Christ, that has made a big difference in my life. But there's a lot of people out there that are still mourning, and they're still hurting, and they don't know about all these wonderful blessings of knowing that, yes, there is therapy, that there's all this help, that there's a light beyond the tunnel, that there's restoration, transformation, that if God did this for me, and if I was able to overcome all these challenges, it was God. It was therapy, but it was God that was holding me through. He kept me going. And that's what my wish and my hope is for today, for this message, this interview, that it is about the Lord, and that if you hold on tight to him, doesn't matter if you're doing your baby steps right now or you're running in life, your faith is there. Uh, as long as you are willing and you have an open heart to receive the Lord, and you've been through loss, then it is well. You could actually find healing, that you could see the light, that God doesn't want you to stay there. that he didn't create this. His purpose was not for us to have loss in our lives, but that's what why are we going through this? Because of Adam and Eve, and we're in a broken world, but this is not going to be forever. And we're just going through life, passing life, but someday we will get to see our loved ones. And that's my hope today, to let you know that it was painful, yes, but at the same time, when I'm writing this book, I'm honoring my mother. I know that someday I'll see her again. And if there's a way for you to do the same thing, if you want to honor your loved ones, do something that will make you feel good, will make you feel better, but it's a way of also honoring them. Every time I go into the kitchen, and I also wrote a cookbook called it's called Cooking with Love, honoring my mother. And it has every recipe has a little story of us too when we would do that recipe. For example, quesadillas, I think that everyone knows what a quesadilla is. It's made out of cheese. The original quesadilla, it's a flour tortilla made out of cheese and just cheese, but that's why it's quesadilla. It's queso, that's cheese. And I would always ask for a quesadilla, but I couldn't say quesadilla, so I would say pesadilla. That means little nightmares. I would sit on a stool and they thought it was hilarious, my aunts with my mom. And still recently, one of my aunts, she said, "Are you going to be asking for a pesadilla?" I said, "No." Well, do you remember you would sit on a stool with your mom and you would help her with the dough? Do you remember? And you would try to make, your round tortillas and you just couldn't, and they would come out like the shapes of who it was, who knows what it was. It looked kind of like, I don't know, maybe it looked like a little monster, but I try to make a little flour tortilla and I was trying to learn. So I would put that on a comal, that's how we call it, where you're going to make a tortilla. So I would turn it around and I would ask for a pesadilla. And oh, how cute, that's a little nightmare. Yes. So I have those memories, having a cookbook, having a little story to it, and then remembering every day. I remind myself every day of what she left me, her own legacy to follow. If you could actually do the same thing, trying to adapt yourself, adopting those memories, those your own story, your own legacy. And if you don't have one, I'm happy to share my own. And you could do that. You could grab mine and use it as your own, and know that God loves us all and he has an amazing purpose. And even though we've gone through pain, don't stay there in a negative place. Don't stay there in the darkness. Try to push yourself through, find positive friends, find people that really love you, find people that are going to lift you up, that are going to love you and tell you what's best for you, that are going to guide you in life, that are going to lift you up, that are not going to put you down. That's the people that you need in your life. That's what I've done throughout the years, learned through my experiences, and I continue to learn every day. And I hope that this, helps.
I love that. First of all, you have so many beautiful nuggets of inspiration in all of the losses that you've had. It's incredible that your faith has carried you through, and really, like you said, from your mom, that is what has helped you get through every single step, every single loss, every single time that you think negatively, or that whatever the trauma was, that God is with you. However you believe in God. Obviously, I'm Jewish, so our God is a slightly different version. But I think that what I've noticed in all the people that I've spoken to is that faith really does play a big role. Because if you can, we're never going to know why the person was taken away from us, why the baby was taken away from us. And that's not for us to know. And we're never going to have that clarity until maybe after we're gone from this world. But to know that the person is always with you, to know that God is always with you, to know that in writing this book, Legacy of Love, in writing your cookbook, and being able to bring those stories forward and share with other people, that's how your mom is still here. And that's how she's giving you those messages to say you are loved and there is a purpose for you to be here. And there is a reason why you're still here and I'm not. And I think that you finding that in all of the things that you've done is so beautiful and so precious. And I thank you so much for sharing all of that.
No, I feel very privileged to be able to share this story and to know the fact that somehow, someday, I don't know when it's going to happen. I've been waiting for her for such a long time, but I know that, and no, and I don't want it to happen. Like, I know it's God's timing, and I am well. But of course, I missed her since the day that, we've been separated, and I
Right.
think her every day.
Yeah.
But knowing that I could carry on her legacy and I could sit and just close my eyes, and even with my eyes open, I could still hear her voice. I
Hmm.
could still have those memories in the kitchen. I have so much, and I'm very blessed in that area that she left so much. An amazing woman, an amazing mother, a lady that has just so much that she taught me so many things, and
Right.
who I am right now, it's because of her. And yes, I've learned a lot with my dad, but most likely I have to admit that it's been my mom, that she
Hmm.
has been there, and she really did a great job. And it was a very short time. I didn't
Right.
have her for a long time like other people do. And that they should actually not take for granted, I would say. If you have your loved ones, don't take them for granted. If you have your parents, if you have uh, your kids, if you have because you never know. And if you've been so blessed in that area, make sure that you're there for them. Make sure that you care,
Hmm.
because we don't all have that blessing.
Right.
And I know that God is the only one that really knows why he had to take her. And he had something for her in heaven to do. And as you said, God has something for me to do here. And that's how I see it. God has a purpose for me to fulfill. And I haven't finished fulfilling his purpose. And he has all this for me. I wouldn't have been able to write this book if it wasn't because of all that I've had to overcome, and it's just a lot.
Right.
But and a lot more than I could actually do on my own. It's been because God has been extremely graceful, and I'm thankful that my mom taught me that and taught me the way. And as you said, you're Jewish, that is fine, but you also believe, and you believe in the Lord, and you have your own faith. But I believe that it's not about a religion. I believe that it's about a relationship with the Lord, and
Hmm.
that when we're battling loss, or we're battling a loss of a child, a loss of a mother, a loss of a loved one, even a loss of a little pet, um, losing, it's very difficult. And if you don't have faith in someone, if you don't have faith, it makes it extremely challenging and sometimes even impossible to overcome that. But
Right.
when you know that you have the Lord, when you have your faith well established, you'll be able to overcome that.
Hmm.
You will do well if your identity is well oriented and you know who you are.
Hmm.
Back then, I was just a little girl that was trying to find my identity, even though I knew that there was a God. But God was trying to find me. There's no question. Now I know my identity. Now I know I'm Jesus' daughter. Now I know it as well. And I'm thankful because of that amazing lady. And eventually I will see her.
Hmm.
And you understand about loss, yourself as well.
I think it's also really important to know that it's okay to be angry with God. Like you said, it's a relationship. And it's something that just because you have faith and just because you know that God is there and wants good things, as much as we know of God's omnipotence, it's okay to be angry. And as long as you work through it, feel your emotions, don't push them down. Understand that every single emotion, actually, I just learned, takes 90 seconds to go through your body. The energy of an emotion fully takes 90 seconds. So it's okay to get that anger and really truly feel it and not to ignore it, but then to also really feel the happiness and really feel the joy that comes on the other side of anger and grief.
Yeah. Well, in my case, I think that what I felt, first of all, I was in shock. I
Hmm.
was in shock, and I was like that for quite a while. I I I fell into a shock, and I could not really talk when she passed away. They one of my mom's sister and her brothers, but mainly my mom's sister, the only one that she has. She said, "You need to talk. You you're
That's so interesting
mom
that
is
you
gonna."
are getting different messages from your grandparents versus
Yes, they
from
were
her
all very
sister.
different, and it was very hard for me. And I'm like, what? As soon as my mom passes away, and they were just flying in from different places because they didn't live in Mexico, and we were living in Mexico because of my mom's job, and she had a property in there. So she flies in, and she saw that I was not saying anything. And you need to tell us, besides you're sitting there and you're crying. And I would just cry when my medicine was passing the effect. I was on medication. They gave me medicine because it was just too much. When the
Hmm.
reaction would pass, when I was in the hospital, I would start running like crazy around the hospital, pulling my hair, yelling at people, telling them, please, we have to pray. My mother's going to pass away. This is the only thing. She's not only my mom, my dad, my everything. Please, you need to help me. She cannot pass away. I need my mother. Oh,
Hmm.
this is not happening. This cannot happen. You all need to step in and help me. And, crying out to the Lord, it was, too much for
Hmm.
me to handle. So with the medicine, I wasn't able to even talk. And it was just too much. I was in
Right.
shock. And she wanted me to talk. She wanted me to say, what I wanted to say. Do you want to talk while your mom, her burial? I said, I can't talk. I really can't. I passed out while they were putting her body down. It was
Wow.
just too much. And I was on medication, and it was hard. Um, I was not talking. I was very sad. I was very confused. I was in shock. Um, I don't think I ever felt angry at the Lord. I felt extremely sad. I felt very confused.
Hmm.
I questioned God a lot. I said, why?
Hmm.
Why have you done this? Why have you taken her from us?
Hmm.
She's everything for us. She's our mom, our dad. We're not going to be able to make it without her. It's not the same living with our grandparents,
Hmm.
even though they're my mom's parents. It's not going to be the same. Our
Right.
mom knows our needs. Our mom has always been there for us. I I didn't feel that anger. I felt lost.
Hmm.
I felt confused. I felt extremely sad, extremely depressed, and I lost the desire of moving on in life. My brother and Jesse and I felt stuck in that time frame.
Hmm.
Life didn't should not move on. That we should just stay there,
Hmm.
static, because we needed her so much. We would cry out to God in a lot of sadness, questioning him. Why is this happening? Why did she have to pass away? Why wasn't it someone else?
Right.
This wasn't right. There was something that didn't go well. So that's how we face loss. But no, we didn't feel angry. We felt confused. We felt a lot of sadness. And it's happened what with my child. That's when I felt like life was over.
Hmm.
I said, it's time for me to go.
Right.
Not going to be able to get up from this bed. It's time for me to end it. But now, as I'm seeing this, I'm like, if you have the Lord, you will be able to overcome this.
Yep.
If your faith is strong in someone, Jewish, Catholicism, being Christian, which that's what we are, non-denominational. I come from a Catholic background. Being Hispanic, that's what you come from a Catholicism mainly.
Hmm.
That's how it works. But eventually, I was always wanting to know more. I was always very when I was born, my husband says that I was born with a pen and pencil and ready to say, hey, cut the umbilical cord. I'm ready. I'm very mature in life. I'm ready to learn and tackle the world. Maybe that's true. I never asked my mother, but she always would mention that I was very, even though I was very quiet, I was very mature for
Hmm.
my age. I
When
was
your mom passed away, did you also have to then sort of take on the mother role to both of your siblings then?
Yes, in a way. Uh, I was going to high school. My grandmother would take care of my little baby brother. He was just days born,
Wow.
so she took care of him. I would help her when I was home
Mhm.
with changing his diaper, with feeding him, with taking care of him. But because of their behavior, my grandparents were very abusive, and they would manipulate us. I would try as much as I could to have a part-time job in the evenings.
Mhm.
So I would arrive, do homework, help her with a house and whatever I could help her
And then
with
be
my,
out of the house after that.
and immediately shower and head out to work. I would come back in the evening, help her a little bit with Luis, that's my baby brother, and immediately go to bed.
So are you
Uh,
close with your
those
brothers
days.
still?
Yes, with Jesse, with Louis, because they married me off and they sent me to Mexico. And because of our age gap, I didn't really get to grow close to him because of all that happened.
Got it.
So there has been that division of age range, and he was a baby. Um, there's a big difference there
Right. Right.
of age. Yes, and Jesse is more my age. We're just 5 years apart between I'm the oldest, and then it's Jesse. He's 5 years younger, and then it's Louis, which is it's a big gap of
Right.
age difference.
Right.
Yes,
And then
yes.
you said your father is still alive now. Are you guys close now?
We're very close now, which we weren't back at the time. It's been very difficult for him. He remarried, and he is not doing well with his health. He is
Mhm.
very, very ill. I don't know how long he has. I'm the oldest, I'm the only daughter. In our culture, they're always expecting to have a son as the firstborn, not a daughter. So being a daughter, it is like I was expecting a boy, a macho problem. So when I was born, my mom would not share, but my dad was not so thrilled of carrying me, of wanting to, hold me.
Right.
Oh, she's a girl. Oh, she's so frail. She might fall. She might. So he was very different with me, and it's changed throughout the years. Now he finally has been more verbal, and he shared that he has 4 kids, but he realized that one of those 4 has been very different, and he has not been direct, but he's been very clear that he's talking about me,
Hmm.
where he was always very he rejected me. He was very dismissive. He was I had to find the way to be extremely perfectionist in everything
Hmm.
and extremely good so I would get his attention, which it was not that way with my mother. It
Right.
was very different. She was very fair to all of her kids, with Jesse and with me. So she was very fair.
Hmm.
Sadly, not with my dad. There was always the boys, all about the boys. So now that he's acknowledging me, it's a big thing for me. Now that he sees me as what I am, his daughter, and he sees me, it means a lot to me.
Hmm.
So that one that comes, it's so different, that's always well behaved, that it means a lot that you have 4 kids, but one of those is very different, and you could see it.
Hmm.
You know what I mean, Annalee? Were you always like this? Were you like that when your mother was along? And I said, yes, I was always this way. You know how I was when I was little.
Hmm.
And I was, oh, okay. So you never changed. I said, no, I've always been this way. Oh, okay. So finally, he's acknowledging me. I'm glad that I'm able to have that relationship that I always wanted.
Hmm.
Sadly, it's sad because in this situation where he's very ill, um, it's sad because I would have wanted it to be in other terms, and how everyone has it since the beginning,
Right.
right? But at least I could say that I'm having it now, and that's what really matters, that
Right.
eventually I'm having something, instead of saying I never got that opportunity to
Right.
have that time or that closure. Or I'm praying that he still has something good happens in the midst of his really bad current health situation, which only God could really help,
Yeah.
because it's looking good. And I hope that, I don't lose my dad, but it's not looking well.
Yeah. Well, in Hebrew we say refuah shalema, which means to a full and speedy recovery. So I wish him a refuah shalema. Um, and I think it's also really amazing that you've taken everything that you've learned from your relationship with him. And you were telling me before we started that you also have 4 kids and that you've tried to break the cycle that they're able to express their own emotions and they're able to really appreciate each one of their personalities. You love them obviously for who they are. Do you remember when there was a moment when you could look at them and say, I know I'm breaking the cycle?
Yes. First of all, let me tell you one thing. We're a blended family.
Okay.
Um, and I think that just there, most definitely, I'm breaking, not with through my mother. My mother was extremely loving,
Hmm.
and definitely for me, kids are my kids. I don't go and see kids and, well, those are yours and these are mine.
Right.
I don't play
You're
that.
one family.
Yes, but yes, I'm breaking that generational mess. And I could even say that it goes even in my husband's side and it goes in my dad's side. And I think I've actually done something in my dad's heart because when we got married 8 years ago, he was very clear that those, I have two and my husband has two, but
Hmm.
we have four.
Hmm.
So I've never played the little game that these are my stepkids. And no, because my dad's wife has always been, oh, honey, those are your kids, Analee and Jesse, and these are our, these are my stepkids.
Right.
I don't like that because I remember those days losing my mother at a very young age and feeling like I didn't belong anywhere.
Right.
And I don't want that to happen. So I try, I'm not going to say I'm perfect, but I try. And knowing the fact that my dad getting married, his first reaction was, well, without him even thinking, these are my grandkids.
Right.
It's very nice of your husband, that he has his kids, but those are his kids. Those are not my grandkids. And I never saw it that way.
Hmm.
I told him that God adopted us. And he said, what? I said, well, as you know, we're not Jewish. And just there, we are being adopted. We are
Hmm.
believers and we are Jesus' children. And I'm not Jewish. God adopted me because my identity is in Christ. I am not born over there. I said, I'm this and this and this and this. What I just
Hmm.
shared, French, Spaniard, Mexican, first generation born in the United States.
Hmm.
I said, but because God has taken me and he paid the price in that cross by sending his only son, I am adopted.
That's
And
an
now
interesting way
I
to
have
look at it.
an identity in Christ.
Right.
I said, so you should adopt also the children. And he looks at me and he says, oh, I said, and he has never seen us, but you say you love him, but you've never seen him. He loves us no matter regardless of. I said, so with that said, how could you say you love God, but you've never seen him? We should first start with what we have at home. We should learn to love one another
Hmm.
like he has loved us and stop seeing people just by their color, just by their appearance, or just by, this is my blood or not my blood.
Right.
To learn to love each other for what we are, human beings.
Yeah.
And the package was sent like that to me with these other two kids. God is the only one that knows why.
Right.
Maybe he knew, I said, that I would be able to do something, which I said, I don't know, but he's the only one that knows.
Right.
So if I know, I said, that my identity is established in God, I'm supposed to live that way. So I think that through the years, he's realized, well, she's got a point. Uh, I have to do something about it. I'm not Jewish, but I've actually been adopted
Hmm.
by. So if I'm adopted by the great I am, I have to live like I am his daughter. I have to love one another like he has loved us.
Hmm.
So I have to live that way. Even though I know no one is perfect, only he is, but I have to make a difference. And every day I have to remind myself and try to be the best version that I can, as best as I can. So
Mhm.
that's how I see. And I broke that cycle because with him, it was about Analee, that's not mine, but these are. So
Right.
eventually now he says, well, those kids are also, it took a while, but now he says, well, those kids, I also love them.
That's
So
beautiful.
I believe that there has been, a breakthrough. He realized that.
Right. I love that it was your faith that got you through that also. I think that it's such a great tie-in for everything that really believing in something greater than yourself has carried you. And I know it's carried me through every single tough situation I've ever been in. And I always say resilience is something that's not innate. It's something that's taught. And I think it
Mhm.
comes directly from understanding your faith and understanding how great the world beyond what we live in is going to be.
Yes. Yeah. And I look at you and I look at myself and I'm like, what's the difference? We're all human beings.
Right.
We all came here for a purpose.
Right.
And how can I reject you and then go and look back and then say, oh, I'm I'm a believer. I have
Hmm.
a relationship with the Lord. I've never seen him. Uh, I've just heard about him. And by
Right.
the way, he's not light complected. Um, Most likely he has a beautiful tan color. Um, he might even look a little more Hispanic than not. Um, but he's still not Hispanic. Who
I
knows?
was
I
gonna
might
say
be.
he looks probably very Middle Eastern, given that he
There
was
you go.
born in
Exactly.
Israel.
And I know how they look. I know they look towards the more, they look kind of like Hispanic in a way, the little tan color and all,
Yeah,
but
olive complexion,
olive
100%.
complexion. So I'm like, so I supposed to start realizing that if I'm not treating you well and I'm seeing you every day, but I come over here and start talking about the Lord. I love you, Lord. I love you, Lord. How is that possible?
Right.
I've never seen him. No, let's start right here from the basic. Let's start getting along with each other. And, then obviously that should also be there.
Right.
But yes, and start getting along with each other and knowing, well, she's Jewish, I'm this. Okay, well, establish a relationship
Right.
and start loving one another and respecting our cultures and respecting your background and your beliefs. And that's when things could really start happening. And that's how we're really receiving the Lord
Hmm.
and showing him and honoring him in a very different way and letting him know we are doing it your way, Lord. We are. So I believe I did have a breakthrough. I believe that I've been adapting more of my mother's beliefs
Hmm.
throughout the years. And I've always wanted, and of course, there's a lot of wonderful things in my dad. I'm not going to say he doesn't. He has a lot of wonderful things to bring. He has a loving heart, which it's been hard to see because he went through a lot of things that he has not wanted to talk. So he's been very harsh, but at times he shows his heart, his love, and then he hides it. I think he's afraid.
Right.
And but now I'm seeing that he addresses all the kids. Now he's acknowledging them. Now he's saying, well, I love them all. I care for all of them. So God, for some reason, gives you all the children that he does. I think he thinks that you are the one, or that he's going to work through you, and he's going to do something special.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect tie-in to say, I think your mom and your book, Legacy of Love, that's exactly what you're living and it's exactly what you're doing. So tell people here listening how they can find your book, either in English or in Spanish, and how they can find you if they want to reach out.
Well, yes, you could reach out to me. I have several, they could look for me on Facebook. I believe that's how we found each other on Facebook
Yes.
on my author. It's author Analee Vinyard. I'm going to have to spell it out because it's a little hard. So it's author and Analee, Analee, Vizcarra, Vineyard without the E. Vinyard. That's for Facebook, or my website that is www.analee, again, Analee Vinyard.com. I have
Perfect.
my books there in both languages. And also my workbook in both languages, in English or in Spanish, to help to heal from all this, whether it's loss, forgiveness, all the 12 chapters that the book shares of all that I had to overcome. It's also the 12 chapters of the workbook in both languages, in English and Spanish. So that's where they could actually reach me or send me a message, or if they're interested in purchasing my book, which I have to share because I'm really excited. My book was actually nominated for the Christian Literacy, yes. And tomorrow I have that event, and I will find out if I won or I did not. There was a lot of other authors that also are going to be there, and uh, just knowing that I was nominated as they have been, I'm already a winner as they are. We're all of these people that wrote their book for the Lord are definitely winners because it was for a good purpose. It's for to inspire, it's to help people, to restore, to empower, to help them to come to Christ for healing. It's for a great purpose. So knowing that I'm doing this and knowing that I've been nominated, it is a big thing. It's exciting, and I just cannot wait to see all these wonderful things that are just coming together. And knowing that I'm carrying my mother's legacy and things are happening, interviews on TV, and so much more that I already have coming together. I am very thankful. So this book is very special.
That's amazing. And congratulations on the nomination. By the time the
Thank you.
episode comes out, you'll have to tell us what happened. I can't wait to hear more about it.
Yes, thank you.
So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and giving such beautiful messages, not only from your mom, but from the baby that you lost and from your best friend, and from just being here to be able to really share your faith and your love and your resilience with other people.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. I feel very thankful and honored to share this topic, even though it's not easy, but it's worth sharing to help other people and letting them know that they're not the only ones that are experiencing this, and that hold on, and to know that with the Lord, it is well. You will make it through. You can, and I know you will.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me today on Pushing Through Loss. I hope this episode has provided support, understanding, and a sense of community. Remember, you are not alone on your journey, and you have the strength to face the challenges that come your way. If you found value in today's conversation, please leave me a review and consider sharing it with others who may benefit. Together, we can help each other heal and activate our inner strength warriors. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations, and until next time, you got this.